Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be taking on the boss battles for Jubilee, specifically Boss Battle 1. Again, I'm splitting up the Jubilee videos this time, and so instead of 1 hour long video, it's hour long video for the normal battles by itself. This one it would be about half an hour, but we're going to split it up into even shorter little bits. So if you enjoy the smaller segmented videos that still have timestamps, let me know. Or if you still want that big, long video that's like almost an hour sometimes, then please let me know in the comments. That way I can adjust. But here's my scores. Currently rank 4, over 600k. I'm going to just chill here because I'm guaranteed my 600 crystals and I don't really care. One thing to note is that the videos recorded to get my high scores were done day ago. So I have upped my score a bit, but the concept and the team for this top score still remains the same. It's just how lucky can you get. So I will explain the differences between the current run that I have recorded and the bigger runs during the actual gameplay. But here we are. Boss Battle 1 is 5 turn limit. It is against 3 enemies right here. We can check out the info tab. And we have Sufia, who doesn't do anything. We have Albus, who nerfs blues and the healing and vengeance skills, so we can't use that. And then Grucius over here gives physical attack and crit resistance. So you do not want to crit on Boss Battle 1. We're going to bring the hero anyways, but she's here for the rewind, not for the crit. And if you do happen to naturally crit on that 2%-ish chance that all units have, your run is pretty much over. So might as well just stop and try again. Which does happen to me a lot over this past couple days, where I would naturally crit on big-time things. I think I naturally crit on this actual clip right here, but it still gets me a high score. So let's just go ahead and start it up. Alright, so this is the team that you'd be using to get a tippity top score. We've got Protector Milim with Protector Milim underneath her for the water and magic, since our 2 primary nukers here are water and magic. We've got the new Shizu. She's very, very important for this team. If you don't have the Shizu, it's not gonna work very well. Like I do a half meta of this as well with just Ranga, Milim, and Shinsha, and it doesn't get anything close, unfortunately. The hero is here for the rewind. You don't want to use her crit skill ever. Don't do it. It costs a lot of points and it's gonna nerf your score. Ranga is actually fairly essential because if he's full buffed, he does more damage than Shizu, and that's because he's an AOE and there's 3 enemies here. So it is very important to bring Ranga for his buffs and his orb change for turn 1. Hinata is our AOE DPS. She's going to be the bulk of our damage, being full buff along with her own personal weakness strike buff. It's going to work very well. And then Shinsha here is our sub DPS, technically. She's still a DPS, but she's a single target. She'll add a big chunk to the score, but you're really looking to get ults with Hinata more than anything else. So one thing to look at before we jump in is the starting hand is a special convert of orange. You have Ranga, so as long as these 2 orbs are Wielder of Magic, he will be able to convert it. So let's go ahead and jump into the clip, and we got to load it up after a bit. But this is my, at the time, best run, and then we could only make it a little bit better. It is the same team, though. I want to make that perfectly clear. It's the same team makeup, same team strategy. So turn 1, you will orb change with Ranga into a full 6-hand of orange, and then you'll swap out Shizu and the hero for Hinata and Shinsha, because making sure Hinata and Shinsha get EX ults is more important than pretty much any other unit on this team. So my Hinata is slightly stronger right now at starting out than my Shinsha because she has a dupe in her, so we'll send her last. If your Shinsha is higher, then obviously flip that around. Here we go. That's a lot of Hinata orbs, which honestly is okay. Not great, though, because we're actually looking for a pretty even spread. because here we're going to use the Ranga Pierce buff and skill point buff, and then we're going to swap Ranga out for the hero to use her rewind right now, because we do have just enough points to do that. And it's very important you do this, otherwise it's very hard to get EX alts for a lot of people. And then we'll take the hero out for Shizu. And here is where I would want an even spread, because I want Shizu orbs to get her EX alt, and we don't need as many Shinsha and Hinata orbs because they're pretty close. But there we go, we also use Shinsha's orange buff, so orange damage and protection gauge increase. The natural guards and natural crits, not great right there to help your score. But now the rewind kicks in, and we did use the Hinata Future Orb. No, we used the Hinata Future Orb skill, not the Shinsha buff. We're going to use the Shinsha buff now. So there we go, right there. And then we'll also use the Alt Force from Shizu. Now here is the important part where it's like, I would have loved to see a lot of Shizu orbs last turn and not Hinata's, because at this point we have just too many orbs for Hinata and Shinsha, and they don't need any more. And I need Shizu orbs because I want her EX alt, but we got one. So we're not actually going to get her alt, which is pretty unfortunate, because, you know, it is extra damage, regardless of how weak she is comparatively to the other units. It is still a decent chunk of damage you can get off of her. So in order for this run to be better, I would need EX alts for all 3 of the units right here, rather than just 2, or even a alt, more than anything. But now the rewind has ended. It's now turn 3, and now we're going to use the element buff, and then the EX buff plus the attack buff for Shinsha. And then we'll use the skill cost reduction skill, which will lower everything back down, especially the orange orb convert, which now we're going to use Milim because we have an alt charm on her, so we'll get extra damage off of this. But also, actually that's not an alt charm, that's something else. We'll also be able to use the future orange hand for next turn, and then we're going to go ahead and send these orbs. At this point, Shinsha, with her attack buff, does do more damage at the very end than Hinata, regardless. So 355 per hit right there is really good. It's more than 1 million damage from Hinata alone. Shinsha does 170 on the 200% orb. And then here, it kind of works. It kind of doesn't, though. I mean, realistically, you would want a 3-3 hand for Shinsha and Hinata so we could full nuke again. But it doesn't quite work out. If we had swapped maybe some of the Shizu orbs for a Hinata orb, this would have looked a little bit better. But now, Shizu's coming out. It doesn't really matter. We've got Ranga, who doesn't need 3 orbs, right? He doesn't get an EX ult. He only needed 1 orange orb. So we could have had, 1, 2, and 3 or something like that, and it would have been fine. But we're going to use Milim here, give us some extra points, and then we'll use the Ranga Pierce buff because it lasts for 2 turns, and then we'll go ahead and send all this, and we'll get whatever we get. So we end up with an EX alt for Shinsha, a double alt for Ranga, and not an EX alt for Hinata, or for Ranga, and then not an EX alt for Hinata, which is the opposite of where you want to go. You want a normal alt for Ranga, and you want an EX alt for Shinsha and Hinata right here. So in order to get your score higher, you would need to do that. So now we're going to full buff again because the costs have been reset. So we have the element buff on everybody, we have the pierce power buff on everybody, and we have the EX damage for at least Shinsha plus her attack buff. And unfortunately, we don't have a Shinsha orb here to end it either. So 47k across the board, 119 except we crit right there, and then 641 right there. And that gets us a final score of, I think, just over 4 million, if I remember correctly. No, just shy of 4 million. So yeah, there are places where this run could be a lot better. You just need the RNG, but the strategy and what you have to do every turn remains the same. It's just what orbs does it give you. So there is, the quote-unquote best team for normal Battle 1. This is what the Sweaty Tryhards are using as well. So 138, I mean, my score is higher than that right now. It's, what is it? It's 156, and that's just by virtue of having those EX alts come in to help our damage. But it's fairly the same. So let's move on to the less fortunate teams now. Alright, so the second team for Boss Battle 1 is going to be a half meta. So this is assuming you have Milim, and you have Shinsha, but you didn't pull for Hinata or Shizu. So we have to replace those units with others. So we've got the free-to-play Ranga still. He's fairly important. We've got Swimsuit Shizu, who may be able to, because we don't have the rewind here, we're not bringing the hero. If you have the hero, then you could very obviously swap her in for probably Rain. Quite honestly, Rain doesn't really do much for us here. But Shizu's here to give that massive weakness damage buff. Water Shuna is here because she's water, and she gives an alt buff, and she lowers water resistance, which Shinsha is still water, and so is Rain. Rain is here if we can use her magic buff, if we can somehow find enough points, then awesome, but honestly, with two 55-point skills on this team now, it might get kind of rough. But she is a single target water nuker, and then we still have Shinsha. So this is an imitation of a high-quality team. It looks good on paper, and it seems like it will do a lot for you. Sadly, it does not get anywhere close to the score of the last team. And that's because Jubilee is always, by virtue, who wailed the hardest, unfortunately. And I really wish they wouldn't make it like that, but unfortunately it is like that. It is very not free-to-play friendly, unless you got very, very lucky by being free-to-play on that particular month. But Jubilee Boss Battles are an exercise in did you summon or not, more than anything else. So, it is what it is. We've got Ranga up here. He's our AOE. He still has the the extra damage buff from Milim. Rain is not on the category, so she just gets normal damage. Neither is Shuna, unfortunately. Here we got a 3-3 spread, but of the wrong unit, because I would have loved to see 3 Orbs of Rain to get their EX, both their EX alts, but unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out like that. So we're going to just use the Ranga Orb change here, and we're just going to send it. We're going to save the Milim right here. Oh, do we bring in someone else? We bring in, looks like, Shizu for Rain. Okay, that works. I mean, it doesn't matter, because they have no orbs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, normally we would rewind here if we had the hero, but we didn't bring the hero on purpose because I wanted to show a team without her. So we have the EX alt for Shinsha. We have a double alt for Ranga. But since we don't have the rewind, and since we don't have anyone to reset the costs of our buffs, I'm actually going to save the Shinsha alt for the final turn when we know we have enough points, rather than trying to use it here and then not having anything left for the next the final nuke. So we're trying to play a little bit of a quote-unquote longer game here, but I'm just having a difficult time figuring out what the hell I want to do. So, quite honestly, what I probably should have done is use the weakness damage buff and swap both of them out, but we do what we have to here. So we've swapped one of the alts, and I believe it hit Shinsha, which is fine. So we're going to use the Pierce buff and then the orange damage buff. And then we're going to convert all these with Milim. And we're going to send one of the Ranga alts because there's no point in holding it on the two of them. So we'll use Milim. We'll bring Rain back in. There's one orb so she can get an alt next turn. And then Shinsha is still just big chillin'. 22k right there. Not great. 16, 12, 35k. I mean, Shinsha's still doing good damage, it's just that the supporting cast around her is not up to the task anymore. So, we still have the EX alt. The buffs on Shinsha are about to leave, so we do have to swap her out here. So, let's go ahead and take Shinsha out, and then we'll take, I believe, Ranga out, because Ranga also has his buffs leaving. What are we doing here? Nope. Oh, I'm gonna be an idiot here. We should probably swap Ranga out, but we swap Rain out. Oh well, maybe we're banking on getting another Ranga ult, or not. So, there we go. So Ranga loses the Pierce buffs and the Pierce. The Pierce will get back from Milim, but the Pierce buff is kind of important. So the alt buff does hit everybody regardless of where they are, so even in the back they're going to get that. So now we can bring in Shinsha for Shuna, and then we can use the weakness buff from Shizu, because we have enough points to do that. So if we use Milim here, we'll have enough points to give at least the weakness buff to Shinsha and Ranga, who will benefit from that. And then we'll have just enough points to use the EX buff and the attack buff from Shinsha, which means that we do miss out on the magic buff here. But to be fair, the magic buff at this point is half its value because it's past turn 3. So it's only 20% up and 20% down rather than 40% up and 20% down. So oh well. 40k on the AOE. Rain does 52k, not great. And then Shinsha still does, 5.5, 550,000 damage, which is still a very decent amount. It's just that we've only launched it once, and so we have a final score of 1.1 million instead of 4 million, or close to it. So, I mean, there were plays that you could have made better during this run, but if you don't have the full meta, you're going to have to work with it. And if you don't have Shinsha or you don't have Milim, it's going to get even worse. So there's a score of 54.6, and that's pretty abysmal. It's still an S rank, though. So let's move on now to the third and final team, which is like the I don't have anything from the meta kind of team. All right, the final team is, if you happen to have Shinsha, then great. And if you don't have Shinsha, you could put, like Water Milim, you could put Hinata, just any water unit at this point, but we're using not the Protector, which means you're already not going to get a good score because you're not getting that extra 60% damage buff. So we're going to use Toa because it is still an orange-focused stage. We've got Light Hinata for orb changing, also Ranga here for his orb change because we are bringing Shinsha. Now, if you don't have Shinsha, bringing Ranga probably isn't the best idea then because no one's giving us Pierce. Sure, we can get more skill points on oranges, but Toa is already doing that passively, so that skill is not quite as useful. And if you only have one unit that's on Wielder of Magic, then his orb change is pretty useless. So, if you were to bring somebody else, like if you have Rain, or if you have Fount of Wisdom Rimuru or something like that, or if you have Aqua or Cosma, like that works. Just a water unit that can do water damage, it would be fine replacements for both Shinsha and Ranga. Shuna here, obviously, for more water, shenanigans. And then Xion being our AOE, quote-unquote, nuker. Yeah, let's just watch it. let's just watch it, and you can see for yourself. If again, Jubilee, you have to use what you've got. And if you don't have the full meta, or even half the meta, then this is a good college try. This will get you a score, and it'll get you rewards. It just won't be a good score, and it won't be good rewards. But at least you can say you attempted it with what you have to offer. So, turn 1, like, if you don't have Shinsha and Rong on the team, then that's why we brought Hinata to cover that turn 1. It's just that she won't give us a natural full protection gauge if you're using the protection trio, because Hinata only buffs alt gauge on her convert rather than all gauges, which is what you need to get a full protector turn 2. But we do have Xion here, which would give us extra protection gauge right there, so we would have been fine if she has her trait. So here, we'll use the orange buff skills from Ranga and Shinsha. We'll use Toa, who's going to give us extra skill points, which doesn't actually matter because we've already done that with Ranga. And then we're going to go ahead and bring in Shuna, because now that Ranga is no longer under that Milim Protector, he's not getting that extra weakness damage buff, so he's just type neutral. So he does less damage now. So it's not really a good point to leave him up front unless he's under the new Milim Protector. But we have an alt for Xion, which is great because she only needs one. We're getting close to an EX alt with Shinsha, but we have no Shinsha orbs, so awesome. Thanks a bunch for that. We're going to swap Xion out because we just don't need her anymore for now, and then we'll go ahead and swap... are we going to swap? Okay, we're going to convert here. Okay. We're going to double convert. So... yeah, so we'll use Ranga's because we got kind of lucky there, and then we'll use the Hinata orb change. We're going to send this, and we're going to try and get at least one more friggin' orange orb for Shinsha to get her EX alt next turn, and thankfully we do. Now, we have a bunch of alts that we don't need, so we're going to send the Hinata alt, and then next turn we're going to bank on having our 3 alts being Shuna, Xion, and Shinsha, the S's. Alright, so Hinata alt doesn't do anything. 12k, yeah, there we go. and then the 2 orbs. We just wanted to do this so we could get the EX alt for Shinsha more than anything else. And then we'll go ahead and bring Shion in for Hinata. Thankfully, there is an orb for that. And thankfully, we can actually use Toa to give us full hand of points. So let's use the EX buff. Let's use the water buff. Unfortunately, I don't have enough points to use the Shion water buff. So we have the alt buff from Shuna. We have the EX buff and the attack buff on Shinsha herself. But that's only affecting her, because none of the other units have EX alts, or have the capability of using EX alts. So maybe here it maybe would have been better to use the water buff overall. Oh well. 27k is not great. 45k also not great. Shinsha does 180, which I guess is cool, but it's not a lot. But this is like a I pulled something out of my ass kind of team. 524k, so not 500,000, right? The last team got us to 1 million, and they're both like, I'm sorry. It is what it is. But at least this should give you an idea of how you should run the stage, and then units that you can bring in that would be, you know, better suited for it. Low cost units, water units. You can't really bring a blue stacking team in here because they nerfed blues, unfortunately. So use what you got. Let's see. Let's pull this down. Like I said, if you don't have the new meta, there's a number of water units you could bring. Aqua, Founded Wisdom Rimuru, Kazuma, Rain, like we did use. I mean, Gobta and Rimuru are technically AoEs. If you want to AoE buff them up because they're free to play, then sure, go ahead. We have a lot of water units to pull from. A lot. So, I mean, Velzard and Raphael are skill fused, so if you go with a Pierce route, you could bring those two plus Chloe down here, and you might be able to run like a Water 1.0 team and, you know, try your hand at that. But there are options for you to substitute out for Ranga and Shinsha. It's just if you don't have the Protector Milim, things get rough because you don't get that extra 60% damage buff, which really, really, really hurts your score. So Toa, Hakuro are going to be your primary converters here for oranges because they all do the same goddamn thing because they lack imagination. But that is Boss Battle 1 for Jubilee 30. Let me know if you have other teams that you use that were relatively competent that could get you maybe like a 2 million score that isn't the full friggin' meta. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.